The Crow tribe settled in the area around Yellowstone River, now Montana, due to the attraction of horses. There were 3 traditional social groups of the Crow tribe, including the Mountain Crow, the River Crow, and the Kicked-in-their-bellies. The responsibilities of the women were very different from the men in the Crow tribe. Women were told to take care of the household needs like food preparation, clothing, and children, occasionally when going to raiding parties and avenging the death of loved ones. The men's responsibilities were raiding horses and preparing for war. Pretty Eagle was the leader of the Crow tribe who was known for his devotion to the people and progress in war. The Crow tribe was religious and did believe that God had created everything. Because of their beliefs, they had made the Vision Quest. The Vision Quest was the idea that a man had a vision that was adopted by a spiritual guardian who gave him instructions on how to assemble materials through a medicine bundle involving prayer, formal vows, fasting and solitude, and occasionally body piercings. In their daily lives, the Crow tribe grew tobacco for ritual purposes, and it was given as a gift to overcome enemies. A major food source for the Crow tribe was bison. They also hunted deer and sheep. In 1825, the first treaty, the Friendship Treaty, was signed between the Crow and the U.S. The Crow leader Longhair was the one to sign, while Crow leader Sorebelly refused to. Soon after, in 1840 to 1850, the tribe suffered a staggering population loss due to a smallpox epidemic. In 1850, the Fort Laramie Treaty was signed and identified the Crow's boundaries, which was 38 million acres. But in 1868, the Second Fort Laramie Treaty reduced the Crow's lands to 8 million acres. The Crow were expected to move to the reduced territory because of the Fort Laramie Treaty. Later in 1869, a government agency was established in Crow Country on Mission Creek. In 1876, the Crow served as scouts in the U.S. military. Soon after, 100 Crow tribal members selected allotments, and the 320 acres of land were assigned to be recorded in the Crow Land Book. The Congressional Act reduced the Crow tribe's land even further, but the Secretary of Interior compensated them by paying for their housing, farming, and ranching requirements. In 1882, Congressional Act for the Northern Pacific Railroad right-of-way provided over 5,000 acres to the Crow tribe. 5 years later, in 1887, there was a Crow incident which started because 2 Native American tribes, the Blackfoot and the Crow, were in the middle of a conflict in which both sides ridded each other's horses. The conflict was started by the sword bearer who went against the chief's advice. The Crow tribe recovered their horses without any loss, but the sword bearer made the mistake of showing off his victory to the Indian agent Henry E. Williamson. The sword bearer then shot into Williamson's house, and it was put into the Billings Gazette, which was a local newspaper. While the U.S. government was looking for the sword bearer, he was busy gathering people to join his fight, and Thomas Rugger was placed in command at Fort Custer along with Colonel Nathan Dudley. When the U.S. government encountered the sword bearer and his group, General Rugger gave the Crow an hour and a half to surrender, which they could do by making their way to a designated area to be disarmed. Eventually, some of the Crow began to surrender, but sword bearer did not and climbed further into the mountains, where he was later shot in the head, and which the Battle of the Crow Agency ended. Many years later, in 1903, the Crow tribe made the annual Crow Fair. Then in 1914, the Crow men were drafted into World War I. In 1958, the tribe sold the Yellowtail Dam site and reservoir area for $2.5 million. In 1987, the Crow tribe filed for a breach of trust responsibility suit against the U.S. government in regard to Section 2 of the 1920 Crow Allotment Act. And finally, in 2002, the Crow tribe passed a new tribal constitution.